Hi guys, and welcome to today's teaching. Just a minute of housekeeping before we have our invocation.
Okay. Let's just begin with a short prayer, and then I'm going to ask Mary to do our land acknowledgement. Most loving and gracious God, once again we give you thanks for Denise and Michelle. Thank you for opening our hearts and our minds. I know from what people have said, dear God, that you have enabled learning and heartfelt change. For that we are so grateful. May you energize us tonight as we learn what things we can do and how we can move forward in a positive way. Please be with us as we strive to make things better for everyone in this country, but particularly let us work to incorporate the indigenous worldview, the culture into our own. We have learned of its value. Thank you, God. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We want to acknowledge that for thousands of years, the Algonquin, Huron, Chippewa, and Iroquois peoples have walked gently on this land where we now work, live, worship, and play. We seek a new relationship with the First Peoples here, one based in honor and respect, and we thank them for their hospitality. Centuries after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today in guiding our decisions and actions. We commit to the promise and challenge of truth and reconciliation.
Thank you for those beautiful words. Welcome everyone on Treaty 61 territory, bases. Let's send greetings of gratitude to our Anishinaabe brothers and sisters. As we heard the last few sessions, they survived a great hardship. And we are thankful for their teachings, for their guidance, and for their caretaking of this beautiful land upon we now all live. Let us send greetings and gratitude towards Mother Earth, who gives us our harvest and everything we need in life. Let us give thanks to Father Sky, Grandfather Sun, Grandmother Moon, and all the stars, the shiny ones being the brothers and sisters of Grandfather Sun, and the darker ones are the brothers and sisters of Mother Earth. Let us send greetings out to everyone who lives out there. And for right now, as of today, let us pray that we don't discover them just yet. Blessings and greetings to all our relations here upon Mother Earth. Blessings and greetings to all the flying ones, to all the swimming ones, to the green and growing ones that we call plants, to the standing ones which we call trees, to the shape changers, you guys call insects, and to the four-legged, who are our closest relatives. May they help us, and may we remember that they have the same sacred right to be upon Mother Earth in a free way, making their lives in a clean environment, same rights that we humans do. Let us send greetings to all humans on Mother Earth today. All different indigenous tribes and all different countries. Let those greetings be ones of peace for all nations among all nations. Ichimani tu, Jemnego, Kayobe, Wakantanka, great God, beloved Goddess, Great Spirit, you have so many names, but one sacred energy. Please protect all of us in this circle and every one of our loved ones and relations out there, today and every day. Make which Shayanam, and thank you all. I will sing you a healing song for everybody who can be here today. For everyone who is worried about the little kids in the hospitals. Everyone who is sad and in mourning. Everyone with a heavy heart. So they can all heal. And you, in your heart, can bring this healing song out into the community. coming back week after week, and we have these heavy, heavy, heavy things to discuss. And today shall be a day when, for those who wasn't here last week, you weren't here, there is several. Very quick, I will go into what we discussed in terms of Pan-Indianism, which you will find in the communities these days. And when you go out there to encounter First Nations, that's the first thing that you will see. And Denise later on will tell us a little bit more what is going on in the Anishinaabe communities. But as you remember, 488 years ago, Mr. Champlain
lost his way to India.
Yes, and he came up the river, St. Lawrence River, and he found our First Nations, and pretty soon he found out that, no, that wasn't really India. It was something similar, but not quite. There's no spice trees here. So, what was it what he and the priests that came with him encountered way back then? What did the Anishinaabe have as their sacred ways? It is something that doesn't exist anymore today, and it, by modern scholars, First Nations and non-First Nations, it's called the shaking tent, the jisika. That's what they found and what scared the living daylight out of it. Tent about this size, made out of 4 tree posts knotted together, one thin tree in the middle, and the medicine person would go in there, and he would, outside, everybody would drum, and the medicine person would go into a trance, and then you would hear all kinds of screeches, growls, and all the animals would be coming in, and they would give him advice. And there would be the sacred turtle that would be able to translate those languages into a language that the medicine man and his or her apprentice would be able to understand. And then the apprentice would relate that to the community, so they could get all kinds of questions answered. From who stole the shovel out of the wigwam to where should we go hunting, how do we heal this and this and this sick person. That is the ancient way, and how we remember is because the priest, of course, wrote everything down in Latin, and because this was all devil's work, it was prohibited. But they didn't really need to prohibit because they had brought all the diseases, and up to 80%, some people said 90% of the Anishinaabe perished in the first waves of diseases, as we remember when we were reading about all the diseases and the waves that came through. Most of the shaking tent shamans and their sacred knowledge was lost, because as a medicine person, you're the first one that is there when somebody's really, really, really sick, right? So, Then, of course, the survivors, they gathered together and they found all the things that they remembered. And then somebody went into trance and had a powerful vision. And out of it emerged what nowadays is known as the Midewin. Midewin Medicine Society of the Good-Hearted People. It was a long, long, long lodge, and I put a paper out there to explain a little bit. And the medicine people would, all the women would sit on one side, the men would sit on the other. They would be having birch bark scrolls. And in the birch bark scrolls, they would help the shaman to, or the medicine people, the Mide, would have the idea of what songs to sing when. Song of the maple syrup, song of this medicine, this medicine, this medicine. And so he would set things up in a mnemonic way so that he could remember, and then he would do the ritual. So, of course, the Midewen was prohibited by the white people. You know, it was, any religion was outlawed. And yeah, so what are you gonna do? Your kids have been taken away to residential school. When they come back as young adults, they don't speak Anishinaabe anymore. You can't talk to them. The elders, many of them passed away in the next wave and the wave after and the wave after of the diseases. Many people converted to Christianity. And there wasn't much left to hold that torn apart framework of society. It wasn't much better in the States either. Same prohibitions against spirituality, wearing regalia. And I remind you, why am I wearing a snow leopard today? Who would know?
Because you're from Siberian First Nation.
Yes, so that you remember, I'm not indigenous from here. I'm Siberian First Nation, and this is a mnemonic to remind you. It wasn't much different in Siberia either, by the way, because we were fiddling with them Bolsheviks and with the Tsar and with everything. So the same thing happened over there. But the shaking tent medicine ways are very, 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 very similar to what my people used to do. It's called shamanism because it's a Tungus word. You go into trance and you find out who stole the shovel in the shed, or that person has gallstones or something similar. But everything here on this continent was prohibited. But the thing is, First Nations, when the pressure gets very, very, very high, somebody, somehow, since it's not a dogma, goes into an altered state or into a prayerful state and comes up with another vision. So in the US, we had the ghost dance movement, where everybody danced a round dance, and they hoped that they would be able to reconnect with the ancestors that had the old knowledge, and that the ancestor spirits would give strength to the people. And some people even believed that the ancestors themselves would come up and dance. And in an altered state of consciousness, after hours and hours of dancing, some people saw their ancestors come back. So this was a revival religion, like we say, or revival spirituality, coming out of a vision from a medicine man of the Piegan, and his name was Bobuka. But of course it was what? Prohibited. Very strictly. How dare you do some dance that I don't approve of, right? So, yeah, well, I bummer. Now, the Southern Seers, the Apache Navajo, they had lived for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years with white oppressors, so they got a little bit smarter. When somebody came up from Mexico and brought peyote up, and they started to develop, they had a powerful vision of a way to make sacred, a new vision They immediately incorporated to become a what? A church. Because meanwhile it was freedom of religion in the States. So if you put a church and you pay church taxes, or what is it what churches pay here?
We don't pay taxes.
Okay, that's a good thing. Anyway, they incorporated their belief system immediately to become a church. At the same time, another church was incorporated. That means that the world was flat. They incorporated that thing too, but that wasn't the native, so a lot of things were incorporated. Some made sense to others. To me, not so much. But anyway, so they incorporated it, and a lot of people, First Nations that were disenfranchised, went into the Native American church. The Christian churches couldn't do very much against that because part of the Native American church also worshipped the baby Jesus as a peace bringer. You know, one of their medicine people, so to speak, to whom they even made songs about it. Certain peyote songs speak about the baby Jesus. The others had a half-moon altar, and there was no Christianity in it. None whatsoever. That aspect of the Native American church is alive and well today. It has about 250,000 adherents over also here in Canada, but also in the States. So you will find adherents of the Peyote Church basically all over the world. Because when I went to university in Western Germany, we had several Apache, we had a brownstone up there, you know, right next to the university where everybody was going to go to get a medical degree. And we had a Peyote roadman, and I was a student of medicine, and I got to know some of the elders there, and for years and years and years I was a member of the Peyote Church. Of course, of the half moon, because I'm not so much into the baby Jesus. I had enough of that. I told you last week why. And so that is something that you will find not so much among the Anishinaabe today, but further west. But still we have thousands of people who were disenfranchised, who had nothing. They were not allowed to go back into the reservations because they had survived residential school. They were disenfranchised, or they were, how they call it, enfranchised, meaning they were not considered Native American anymore. So they were not allowed to live on the rest with mom and dad and relearn their language. Nothing. So they were out on the streets. So the next thing the government here did, they put loitering laws everywhere. More than 3 First Nations weren't really allowed to gather anywhere. So they had no jobs because nobody would give a Native American person a job. They had no money, they had no place to be. They were, some of them ended up in alcohol. So there was lots and lots and lots of trouble. And I think many of you remember those early days when we had a lot of First Nations, and sometimes you saw them sitting behind the liquor store. And this is not happening anymore anywhere on Turtle Island. Because then, in 1978, medicine people yet again got together. And they said, we have to change this. The suicide rate among young Native Americans is 34%. 34% suicide rate. So they said, we have to do something. We can't, do Native American church, because if somebody is into booze and then go into peyote, that's not a good mix. So we have to have sobriety. So Number one, what the American Indian movement, which is an American United States thing, they got together in 1934, all different tribes. And in 1968, they started to really organize as a political fraction. We in Canada also got organized, and we got renamed and renamed and renamed and renamed, but the organization, the political organization of the First Nations today is the Assembly of First Nations, with Anne-Marie Archibald, Mary Ann Archibald, which one was it? Mary Ann Archibald, right?
Archibald is right.
So she is our chief, but the Assembly of First Nation being a political thing, so what are we all doing with the spirituality that was out there? And the medicine people got together, led by Arvo Lippenhorst and his young apprentice back then, Leonard Kroger, who is actually my age, and yeah, I know him, but that's another story. They got together and they put several sacred ceremonies together that everyone that has native blood, never mind if you were half Chickasaw, half Choctaw, and the quarter Scottish or whatever, anybody that felt native blood in themselves could follow. Because on the rest, the elders had gone through 2 generations of residential schools. They didn't often know what was there, and they didn't trust anybody. If they still knew about, for example, they didn't trust anybody. We would only teach somebody who is initiated, meaning who grew up, like our Sachem in the Longhouse always said, they grew up underneath the husk, meaning they have been hidden and they grew up without residential school. He was kept under the husk. If you hear that, that is an elder who escaped residential school. So those ceremonies that were put together, and now I have to check my cheat sheet because I don't want to make a stupid mistake here.
Michelle, you don't know everything? You don't know everything off the top of your head?
Well, there is a lot of
I'm
stuff
shocked.
in the top of my head, so better be sure I do the right thing here. And then I leave the whole mess up to you to tell a little bit more. So the sweat lodge, the Lakota people had no restrictions of offering the sweat lodge ceremony into a sacred circle. Now, what do you think happened 5 minutes after they did that? What did we say last week? What happened?
Got commercialized.
It got commercialized, yes. Some white guy came around the corner and said, I'm the big poobah, and for $1,000 I'm gonna lead you through the sweat lodge. What do you think happened when they gave the sun dance into the sacred circle?
Same thing, it became commercialized.
It became commercialized and bastardized within 20 minutes. Believe me that. So, the next thing that was given is from a powerful vision of Black Elk. The book that Black Elk and Roger Neihardt wrote in the 30s and 40s became sort of a, almost would I say, Bible to First Nations people, because Black Elk had that vision of the 4 colors, white for the white people, yellow for our brothers and sisters in Asia, red for the red nations, and black for our black brothers and sisters, and that we all have to get together. And left over from ancient times are up in the high prairies, for example in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, are the huge medicine wheels, 5,300 years old, as a solar observatory, but also as a mnemonic for a better way of life. East has certain meanings, South has certain meanings, West has certain meanings, North has certain meanings. The meanings may be a little bit different for every tribe. That's how we recognize each other. If I have a wolf in the east, I know that that person is Inde, it's Apache. If the wolf is somewhere else, and it may be, and if there's a buffalo in the west, then we know this is probably Lakota or the seven grandfather fires. So we know the medicine wheel as becoming a concept of teaching and learning. And that was given into the Great Circle. And then, of course, this matching ceremony that everybody is taught. It is something you can do at home. If you're totally stressed out because you just lost your work and your kid spilled the milk and everything feels overwhelming as a single mother in a 2-bedroom high-rise apartment in downtown Toronto, and you need something. As a Native woman, you could smudge and cleanse everything and calm down instead of having a hissy fit. So the smudging ceremony was very, very, very important for cleansing, getting dark energies out, for preparation of ceremony, and also as a way to worship that doesn't cost very much, and you don't have to travel very far. There are still some Nidevan medicine lodges, but if you become a member there, it's often 1,000 kilometers to drive, because there's one out in Western Ontario, and then there's one in Wisconsin, and so you can't just go there, and they all only go every four times every year. So it hasn't been feasible, especially in the 70s and 80s, because they were more or less non-existent, and if that it was very, very far away and very, very difficult to reach. So out of these sacred gifts that elders gave into the circle, the dream catcher is an Anishinaabe gift into the sacred circle. For the children, if they are having hard times and nightmares, that they are protected by the dream catchers. And this is something that First Nations or the elders said, everybody that is part from this tribe, part from that tribe, part European and part Asian can follow. And so this is also what you find largely today. So now you tell us a little bit of what you experienced with the elders that you work with.
Okay. So the following information I am sharing with you today comes from Anishinaabe Health Toronto and my own personal journey. So I attended 7 weeks of 24/7 healing and teaching at Indigenous healing lodges, 25 years of monthly socials and dances and teachings, powwows, many elders, and of course many, many years as Michelle's student. Okay, so traditional healing. Traditional healers and elders say that the Great Spirit works through everyone and that everyone has the ability to heal, whether it's the mother who tends to the scrapes of her child, a friend who eases your pain by kind words, or a healer who heals your sickness. Everything that was put here is healing: the trees, the earth, the animals, and the water. In the past, knowledge of the medicines was a natural part of everyone's learning. We knew what plant medicines were for and how to prepare offerings for them. When we needed special help beyond what was common knowledge, we looked to our medicine people and healers. This familiarity with healing properties of plants that grew around us was empowering. It was something that belonged to the community. This knowledge is no longer widespread, and many of the illnesses that our communities are faced with today were not seen in the past. Many Native people are seeking emotional, mental, and spiritual healing for past abuse and traumas, for the pain that they are carrying as a result of what generations of their families went through, and for a loss of identity due to separation from family and culture. Others are seeking help for physical illnesses such as diabetes and arthritis that affect Native people in disproportionately large numbers. Native people know that everything in creation, the plants, the trees, the water, wind, rocks, and the mountains have spirit. As part of creation, we are sacred and have spirit. Healing is understood in terms of the spiritual basis of everything. Our approach to healing is through ceremony. When we put our tobacco down as an offering to these things we call creation, our spirit is making that connection so that we will be able to get that life source from them. Our healing ways are referred to as traditional healing. This way of healing is holistic, based on an understanding of the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of balance and harmony in creation. The number 4 in creation. So in all of creation, there are 4 parts to everything that is natural. There are 4 parts to the morning, 4 parts to the afternoon, to the evening, and to the night. The human body has 4 parts: arms, legs, trunk, and head. A tree has 4 parts: the roots, branches, trunk, and leaves. They are all connected, but have different functions. Just as in creation, all things are connected, but have different functions. So our mind, body, spirit, and emotions are part of the sacred circle of life and are interconnected. When one of them is out of balance, it affects the other. If you have a physical problem, it is connected to your spirit. If your mental state is out of balance, it will cause emotional turmoil. So traditional healing is the restoring of balance to the mind, body, spirit, and emotions. There needs to be harmony and balance in us, just as there is in all of creation. When that harmony and balance is lacking, sickness ensues. It is said that a great deal of healing comes from ourselves because we want to be healed. In taking responsibility for our own healing, we may participate in ceremonies. This can include our daily ceremony of offering tobacco. It can also include other healing ceremonies that we participate in under the guidance of healers and conductors, such as the Sweat Lodge that Michelle talked about, the Sun Dance, the Fast, and the Vision Quest. When you start on a healing journey, you are making a commitment to yourself, help yourself, your family, and your community. Although ceremonies differ from First Nation to First Nation, basic beliefs are similar. Kind of think of it as French Quebec, or France French and Quebec French, because a lot of people ask about the differences. So in different regions, there's different slang. Just a way to think about it. We have all come to take care of the spirit. Use of sacred items such as the pipe, the drum, and the eagle feather can help us make the connection with creation. It is said that all of creation can give us teachings, that our way is a loving way that teaches us about kindness, caring, sharing, honesty, and respect. When we pray, the spirits that travel with us hear our prayers. They recognize us clearly when we let them know our spirit name. In this way, our spirit name is said to be 50% of our healing and balance, and also because with it, we know who we are, we know where we belong, we know where we are going, and we know where we came from. And of course, with the disconnect, a lot of Indigenous people didn't get their spirit names because it's the elders and the traditional teachers that can give that. So we can approach the traditional healer or medicine person for healing. We can also approach our elders who heal through the sharings of their wisdom and the teachings. When we go to a healer or elder, they ask the Creator to help on our behalf. They have a gift to heal through spiritual powers which come from the Creator and their spirit helpers and from within themselves. Healers and medicine people work in a variety of ways. Each healer has their own way and special gift. Healing involves ceremony. When a person comes to for doctoring, that is a certain type of ceremony. When medicine people call in the spirit of the medicines to help health, that is also a kind of ceremony. Some healers know and work with the plants, with their connection with the spirits of those plants. Healers and medicine people prescribe medicines specifically for an individual. The way in which the medicine works is not exactly known and is sometimes referred to as the Great Mystery. Great respect is shown for the plants that are used in healings. Healers say that the spirit force of the plant directs them to the plant to use for an individual. Before the plant is picked, the healer puts down a tobacco offering to acknowledge the spirit of the plant. Nothing is picked without putting down tobacco, even if it's just a little dandelion for some tea. There's always the tobacco, or sema as we call it, put down. The plant is addressed by its native name, as it is said, and at least half of the healing is done by the spirit of the plant. Some healers do doctoring, which may involve the extraction of illnesses. Some healers describe their way of working as working with energy, the mind, and the spirit. And some are counselors, and some heal with their hands. All traditional healing is holistic. If a person seeks help for an ulcer, it is not only the ulcer that is treated. The root cause of the condition is addressed. The whole person is worked on. Maybe the whole family will be involved in the healing process, or maybe the person will need to do something for the community. So when Michelle talked about the medicine wheel, we did have these set up on the floor last week. But when she talks about and this is just a minimized version. Each one of these has so many more meanings. But the spiritual is in the east. And again, this is Ojibwe, talking Michelle said. The emotional is in the south. The west is for physical. And the north is for mental. So just a quick demonstration. When I was at the Healing Lodge, one of the things that we would do is we would take the diagram and we would go through. So, you know, for spiritual, I see my traditional teacher every other month, so bi-monthly. Emotional, I see a therapist monthly. I chat with my friends. I, you know, download with my husband. Physical, I go for a walk. I try and eat wholesome foods. And then for mental, I try and play games that, you know, crosswords or whatever that bring it. And then you can look at this and you can say, oh, I do a lot for my emotional needs, but I don't do a lot for my mental. So whether you're Indigenous or not, I'm not saying that you need to use the medicine wheel, but everybody can do that. It's just kind of look and see, well, I'm doing, you know, I'm spending a lot of time and energy, but if one of these isn't in balance, if you're doing everything for emotional, you know, I'm going to become overweight, I'm going to become lethargic, I'm going to have, you know, sore joints and stuff because I'm not taking care of this, you know. And if I'm emotional and I'm eating tons of sugar, which is my problem, then I have to worry about diabetes, you know, later in life. So, oh, that one? Oh, that's, meow. Oh, that's a phone, okay, I was like.
I thought somebody wanted to put some that.
I'm looking for my grandbaby, because that's what we do all day. Every animal she sees, every book we read, we do all the animal sounds. Okay, so, I don't know how much time, I'm just gonna keep
You
my.
can take time.
I can? Okay.
Yes.
So,
Keep on going.
some of the stuff that I'm showing is just to show what the Indigenous people are trying to do to heal themselves. You know, with all the trauma and whatnot, like I say, the healing lodges, they're popping up all over. It's free to attend, so it's, you know, you don't have to have tons of money to be able to attend. I attended the trauma recovery program and the sexual abuse program, where you're literally there from morning to night, and you're learning from morning to night. Anyway, so we'll go back to some of these. So sacred, glasses off. Okay. Sacred items. So when we carry sacred items, we carry them with a recognition that everything in creation has spirit, including the animals and plants, The rocks, the water, the moon, and the stars, even one feather of a bird has spirit. When we carry a feather in our bundle and use it for our personal prayers and in ceremony, we are calling on the spirit of that bird for help and guidance. We have pipes. A pipe can be a grandmother or a grandfather. Usually when women carry it, it's referred to as a grandmother. When a man carries it, it's referred to as a grandfather. Excuse me. The pipe itself represents the woman and the man. The bowl representing the woman and the stem the man. There's a lot of symbology, which is something that I really love about a lot of the Native traditions and ceremonies. The pipe was given to the Native people as a way of communicating with the Creator. A direct link is formed when the pipe is smoked or touched. Pipe is smoked or touched. People are putting their thoughts and prayers into it. The drum is the heartbeat of our people. It is the heartbeat of life. We live the first 9 months of our life within our mothers, and we listen to the heartbeat. It sets the pattern of existence. The drumstick. There are various types of drumsticks. Some people refer to the drumstick as being part of the Thunderbirds. Other teachings say the drumstick is the arm of the Great Spirit who gave us a heartbeat. The rattle. It is said that before the Creator made everyone, the universe was in darkness, and the only sound was that sound of the shaker makes, the shaking of seeds in a gourd. The spirits are drawn in many people. The spirits are drawn in when many people use their shakers as they sing a song. Eagle feathers. The eagle is one of the closest to the Creator because he can fly so high and he speaks for the people. In the old ways, if you did something remarkable for your people, you had the right to an eagle feather. If a warrior proved himself in battle facing an enemy, he received an eagle feather. Sacred bundles. Many First Nation people who follow their traditional teachings will have sacred items to help and guide them. A sacred bundle can consist of one or many sacred items. It can be the little tobacco pouch that some people wear around their necks, or it can be the items that the Spirit have given to a person to carry for the people. And there's a difference between personal bundles and bundles for the people. So for personal bundles, you may have a personal bundle that you have built with items you have gathered and that you take care of. This bundle is sacred to you. It contains items that help you in your personal development. It contains items that have given you a teaching and that you use in ceremonies. Maybe your parents or your grandparents or an elder gave you something to help you on your path. All the contents of your bundle relate to you. Your personal bundle may include medicines, your drum, a bowl, a rock, your colors, a feather, a staff, rattle, your pipe. You may also carry a clan marker, something that represents your clan, such as bear cloth or bear clan. And tobacco is always the first in your bundle. These items remind us of the beauty of creation. And again, I say this from Anishinaabe because I know that tobacco isn't quite the same in your culture.
We don't use tobacco anymore.
Yeah. Bundles for the people. The bundles for the people are used for healing and ceremonies. It is said that these bundles contain things that the nation needs to survive. The healers who carry the medicine bundles say they do not own these bundles. They say that our people's understanding is that we do not own anything, not even our physical body, which is given back to the earth when we die. They carry these items as gifts for the people. The healers who take care of these bundles have been chosen by the spirits to carry on the teachings, the work, and the responsibilities that come with these bundles. So respecting and honoring our sacred items. Some people display their sacred items in a special room or on an altar. Others keep them in a bundle until they are ready to use in a ceremony. Some leave their feathers out as they may have been given to them to create calmness in the home. And another interesting thing is people feast their sacred items, sometimes 4 times a year, sometimes with the seasons, or twice a year. And feasting can look different for everybody, but for one of my teachings, like for my drum, we would take strawberries and we would actually rub the strawberry on the side of the drum.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Medicine bundles. There is nowadays a lot of people who are either, some of them Medieval, but a lot of other that have personal medicine bundles or keepers of tribal bundles. Tribal bundles, if a shaman passes away, he will usually give before he will give the person, the next face keeper, the bundle. But oftentimes, if it's a personal bundle, and the people around this person have all turned Christian, then what to do with the bundle? So over the years, I have now received 3 medicine bundles from people where the family, became Christian or is not interested in continuing Native American spirituality, but they are also afraid of throwing the bundle out. So in our house we have now 3 bundles, meanwhile, that I'm safekeeping, and one of them has been given to me as a teaching bundle by the relatives of this person. So if we do a circle sometime, January is out, but February, theoretically I could bring that bundle and we could open it and make a ceremony for it, feast it, bring the spring medicines to it, and you could see what is in a bundle like that. Because it would be a part of medicine bundle teachings that you then learn. So.
And speaking about feasting, whenever there is a powwow, the very first plate that is made is always given to the sacred fire. Sometimes there will be ancestors that have passed that they'll do a feast for, and there will be a plate set for them. Sorry, that just came to the top of my head. Anyways, so back to this, the 4 sacred medicines. So tobacco is the first plant that the Creator gave to the Anishinaabe people in particular, but a lot of Native people. It is the main activator of all the plant spirits. 3 other plants, sage, cedar, sweetgrass, follow tobacco, and together they are referred to as the 4 sacred medicines. The 4 sacred medicines are used in everyday life and in ceremonies. All of them can be used to smudge with, though sage, cedar, and sweetgrass also have many other uses. So tobacco, which we call sema, is traditional people say that tobacco is always first. It is used as an offering for everything and in every ceremony. Always through tobacco, the saying goes. Traditional tobacco was given to us so that we could communicate with the spirit world. It opens up the door to allow the communication to take place. When we make an offering of tobacco, we communicate our thoughts and feelings through the tobacco as we pray for ourselves, our family, relatives, and others. Tobacco has a special relationship to other plants. It is said to be the main activator of all the plant spirits. It is like the key to the ignition of the car. When you use it, all things begin to happen. Tobacco is always offered before picking medicines. When you offer tobacco to a plant and explain why you are there, that plant will let all the plants in the area know why you are coming to pick them. So like for instance, I pick a lot of cedar because we drink a lot of cedar and use it for a lot of things. So I would always, I would say, Wanabajo, I would introduce myself, hello. Nanokashas Kwe, Nadishnakas, Nadonam. I'm, hummingbird woman, and I'm from the otter clan. And then I would just thank the cedar tree, Chimiquich cedar, just for being here. Chimiquich for the medicines. And then I would go, and this is how I was taught, as I say, through the healing lodges, but I would specifically ask for what I wanted. So, if my husband was extremely sick, I would say, please help my husband with his cold, and so that he can heal quickly and it doesn't go into his lungs. But it's always, like even with the sweat lodges. So I've been to multiple sweat lodges. And like Michelle was talking about specific ways of doing everything. The women would be in charge of picking the grass that we put down. I have to put tobacco down before that. Then we would pick the cedar, so I would have to put tobacco down to pick the cedar. And then, you know, there was tobacco put down before we picked the grandfathers and the grandmothers, which are the rocks. And I'll go into sweat lodges in a minute. But it's not just one. You can just do one time if you have little, but it's usually over and over again that you put this down. When you seek the help and advice of an elder, healer, or medicine person and give your offering of tobacco, they know that a request may be made, as tobacco is so sacred. So that's another thing, like for me, the traditional elder that gave me my spirit name, I had to give tobacco. Any kind of elder that you're asking anything from, even if you're at a powwow and you wanted to say, you know, ask an elder a question, it would even be appropriate to give them a little tobacco and say, hey, could I ask you a couple questions about, you know, the powwow or what's going on? It's just a form of respect. We express our gratitude for the help of the spirits give us through our offering of tobacco. It is put down as an offering of thanks to the first family, the natural world after a fast. Traditional people make an offering of tobacco each day when the sun comes up. Like all churches, you know, you're supposed to pray every day. You're supposed to do your tobacco every day. It's encouraged practice, but I will say, my dear husband, he's not here to hear me say this, so that's good. He is very much better at that than I am. Traditional tobacco is still grown in some communities. For example, the Mohawk people use a traditional tobacco that they grow themselves, and that is very sacred to them. I was actually very blessed to be gifted tobacco seeds, and I have grown ceremonial tobacco many, many times. Quick funny story, my daughter went off to college, have an empty bedroom. She comes home at Christmas, or after the summer, and I guess it was Christmas because she left in September, and the whole room had all this stuff drying in it. She must have thought I lost my mind in the beginning. But anyway, so there was tobacco everywhere.
Is ceremonial tobacco different than
It is.
regular tobacco?
It is.
Okay.
What the difference is, I do not know. It does look different. I think that's chemicals, because when you buy anything in the store, there's more chemicals and
It's like a
stuff.
heritage seed that you use.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as I know, unless you get it from, like, it's not something you can go to the store and buy. I don't know many places that actually sell it. It's kind of like, I grew it in my backyard, so I have seeds, and if I gift them to someone, then they can. Do you know the exact difference in ceremonial tobacco as opposed to store-bought tobacco?
It is the way it is grown. It is not commercially grown. It is grown naturally. There's no insecticides and stuff like that on the ground. Like if you go to the southern states, you know, that's what they put out, and it's a mass production. So that the tobacco is considered not to have the same life energy, because everything being connected, if you grow your own tobacco in your own home like Denise does, it is grown here in Mother Muskoka. So it has the energy of the spirits of the land in it. Like when I came here into this country, I had to, I have my ancestor spirits, like good old Siberian snow leopard, and you know, my clan animal, the wolf from my father's clan, and so on and so forth. My shamanic animals that, you know, help me when I go into trance and have sick people on my bear fur. But it's also the spirits of the land. This land here, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, only knew the Anishinaabe way of honoring them. So my spirits, my personal spirits, and my clan animals and clan spirits have to somehow get together with the spirits of the land. But tobacco that you grow here in your own home has the spirits the energy of your home and of your land, and therefore can better work with you, especially if you were the one who puts the seed in the ground. Now, for people in the US, yeah, some they take commercial tobacco because they have nothing else. And there has also been the workaround. You probably have seen the packages of Bull Durham tobacco with the buffalo on it. And they said the buffalo is on it, and the buffalo is our biggest power animal. And if you have nothing else, then you get Bull Durham tobacco, because the power of the animal, the buffalo, you call on buffalo teachings, you call on white buffalo calf woman to help, and then, you know, it's gonna be stronger than any other shit that may be in there that shouldn't be, and it'll be okay. It's better than nothing. So I have often been sitting on a powwow and people, I had a basket where's my drum and people throw Bull Durham in there. And then finally I explained to them, you know, in Siberia we don't use tobacco and I don't smoke. So it's always good to give it on to some elder. But if you have nothing, as a First Nations person, the good old Bull Durham will do.
And something that an elder told me, because when I first started this, I was so scared of doing anything wrong. If you do it with a good heart and with good intention. So if you have nothing else and your heart and your intention when you're giving that tobacco, you know, for the cedar you're gonna pick is not true ceremonial, that's okay. Because the Creator understands that not everybody's gonna be going tobacco. You know, it's not what it used to be.
Good example for that is, I was in Europe and somebody was really, really sick and they asked me to do a ritual. I didn't have a drum. A waste paper basket and a cooking spoon put me into the same darn trance than any drum of my drums that are at home. It's what you have, it makes you make do with, right? And so then I was able to help. Or when we were in Midland, was about to set up on a craft show and somebody said, oh, my back is out, I need help, you know. Every hotel room used to have a waste paper basket, and then you have some sort of stick from outside and off you go, you know. There is a way to do things if you have nothing. And I think First Nations people all around the world are very, very, very good to find the right thing in a yiffy, if you need to.
And if you watch our innocent children, they will teach you that. How many kids will take pots and pans and drum? What do you think that the call to bang on stuff is? You know, I mean, it's the heartbeat, and they learn many ways of doing that. Speaking also about stuff that's grown here, another thing is honey. So if you get honey that's grown locally, it's good. Honey's really good for allergies, especially allergies of stuff here, because the bees, you know, are all anyways. If you get local honey, it's good for our allergies. If you're buying honey from somewhere else, then you're not getting the local.
It has something in
medicines.
it from a plant that you may be allergic to. But the local honey doesn't have that thing because
No, it's the other.
otherwise
Sorry, it's the other way around. The honey actually helps you deal with the allergies. So if you have allergies to flowers and stuff, when you're eating honey, it helps with the allergies. That was one of the teachings.
Yeah, but
that I was taught.
Mexican honey, some people can't have it because it's grown, it's taken from
Yes.
plants that have, that we are allergic to, or
Okay, I see
some
what you
people
mean.
are allergic to. So if you take foreign honey that has not been, what is it, pasteurized, or what is it called? It can happen that you get hives.
Okay, let's go back to the medicines. Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much more have you got?
I can finish up on the 4 sacred messages. We can skip this sweat logic. We're running out of time. It is 7:47.
Yeah, I think do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So we'll finish up with the medicines. So we've done tobacco, sage. Sage is used to prepare people for ceremonies and teachings. Because it is more medicinal and stronger than sweetgrass, it tends to be used more often in ceremonies. Sage is used for releasing what is troubling the mind and for removing negative energy. It is also used for cleansing homes and sacred items, and it also has other medicinal uses. So cedar, like sage and sweetgrass, cedar is used to purify the home. It also has many restorative medicinal uses. When cedar is put in a fire with tobacco, it crackles. When it does this, it is calling the attention of the spirits to offer to the offering that is being made. And I was told specifically with the cedar, so when you put your cedar and your tobacco in the fire, it's like you're saying, please, Creator, this is urgent, listen to me, but to use it sparingly. I mean, it's kind of like those whole, don't cry wolf. I mean, please, you gotta help me because I stubbed my toe. So, but it calls the attention because it sparkles and cracks. And so cedar is used in fasting and sweat lodge ceremonies as a form of protection. Cedar branches cover the floor of the sweat lodge, and a circle of cedar surrounds the faster's lodge. And then sweetgrass is the sacred hair of Mother Earth. Its sweet aroma reminds people of the gentleness, love, and kindness she has for the people. When sweetgrass is used in healing circles, it has a calming effect. Like sage and cedar, sweetgrass is used for smudging and purification. And here's a little native humor for you. You go to a powwow and you see a table full of sweetgrass. Quite often will be a little sign saying 25, 50 cents a sniff. It smells amazing. And even in making those things, it's made with 7 strands of 7 pieces of braided. So there's ceremony even within little things like that, which I find it's almost like a meditative effect.
Braiding sweetgrass is a form of meditation.
There you go.
You shouldn't braid sweetgrass if you're thinking, I'm going to sell this in the farmer's market and I'm going to make $20. That's not going to help the person that buys it.
Well, that's the intention of putting the medicines into what you're doing. They say you should never cook when you're angry because you're giving negative medicine to the people that you're feeding. Anything that you do in anger is not going to bring good medicine. And I think we might have touched on this before, but like gossiping in the Native community is considered bad medicine. Anything that hurts somebody else is bad medicine. So we do everything from a good heart and in a good way, then we're giving good medicine. So taking care of the medicines. You can take care of these sacred medicines by keeping them in a dry place. They can be stored in paper bags or wooden boxes. So medicines should never be stored in plastic. It should always be, same as the smudges. I use matches. It should never be a lighter. So it's always as natural materials as possible. Most stores would sell like smudging in the plastic bags, but if you go to a place like the Rana smoke shop, I can't remember the name of it, all their medicines come in paper bags. The medicine man who I bought all my medicines that just died recently, everything came in paper bags. The other thing is, yes, if you've been using alcohol or drugs, healers say you should wait 4 to 7 days before touching the medicines. And this is something, a lot of people think about the indigenous people and the alcohol and the drug issues. But on powwows, if you are caught drinking or doing drugs, you're kicked off powwow grounds. Sweat lodges, even to the point where most healing lodges and sweat lodges and stuff, now they can't monitor it per se, but you're supposed to have not had alcohol or drugs of any sort for days before doing any of this because it stays in your system. Yeah, and if any,
When you say medicine of any kind, could it be would it include insulin?
no, not blood pressure medication. So,
Okay.
sorry, if I said medicine, that's not what I meant. I meant drugs or alcohol that have been mind altering.
Intoxicants, that's
Yes,
what it is.
yes, thank you, Fraser. Mind changes is exactly the way they put it. Anything that you need to live, especially in, diabetes is huge in the Native population. Like, they have, I can't remember, I don't know if you know the stats off the top of your head, but it's,
Numbers that we are not.
yeah, that's true. But it's like, you know, if the general population is 20% diabetic, the indigenous population is like 70%. So all those kind of things, it's just the mind-altering chemicals.
The
That,
only thing that you can do if you come from a Peyote ceremony, because that is also called a sacred medicine. So, but if you have been doing ecstasy or something, you're not supposed to go to any of the traditional powwows.
yeah.
Which I don't know if you guys, who has never been to a powwow?
Never been
Oh,
to
so that you have.
Okay, powwow. So one
So
thing,
let's go and explain a little bit about that.
Okay,
because
what-
that- yes.
sorry, just one thing before I say, so a huge recommendation, if you want to go to a powwow, go to a traditional, not a competition, okay? And the difference being, I have always gone to traditional, and I went to a competition in Ottawa, and it was awful. You just sit there and you watch, and it's just like a spectator sport. Not saying that there's not, like, there's reasoning for it, and there's, but for you to go see one for the first time, I mean, if you're a competition, like, if there's a whole different meaning behind it, is what I'm saying. So if you can, and Midland is probably one of the friendliest and nicest powwows to go to. There are a lot of people, it's a smaller powwow, it's a traditional powwow, and they explain a lot of the stuff. If you listen to the MC, anything that is an intergenerational dance, anybody can dance. Intertribal, intergenerational. Sorry, that's been on my brain from last week. Intertribal, anybody can dance an intertribal, but it's just, and the Midland one, and I have no stake in the Midland one, it's not like I'm organizing or anything, but the Midland one is usually the first Saturday after the kids go back to school. And hopefully this year will be the first year back since COVID. But a lot of the people there are very good at explaining too. Sorry, that's,
So you all remember well that native spirituality was prohibited, to wear native regalia, and don't say costumes. I have a whole sheet we should go after the break, we go through and see do's and don'ts, you know, what can I do, what should I maybe please not do. Those are the sheets that you take home. So, but then the settler society, let's say, decided the natives are not competitive because they were all, you know, putting everything together. Somebody kills a deer in hunting season, brings it and shares it with everybody. Instead of competing, you know, I have a bigger deer or a bigger fridge, you know, or, you know, like the neighbors. So they were okay with native people competing with each other because they wanted to teach them competition. So there came the competition powwow around the corner. Now that was a great thing because you put the number 57 on your back, you signed up for traditional dances, you could wear regalia, and you could follow the tradition of dancing your traditional dance. And then the best dancer, who is the best dancer in that thing that is a spiritual thing, right? Would get a prize. So this is how competition powwows totally, absolutely circumvented the prohibition of gathering, doing native prayers, because the dances are prayers. It's a moving prayer. And also of wearing your regalia, because for the white people this is all a costume, like it's, you know, Halloween or something. I don't know, can't understand it. But they think that this is all really neat costumes that we see. If you go to a Don't say costume. Never, 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 never.
We did talk about
Don't
that.
touch anything there, because I have seen it with my own eyes on a traditional powwow. Some Germans came over, they went over to one of the drums and they banged on the drums. The people that owned that drum, they had to pick the drum up and put it in the fire. Do not teach anything, anything. If somebody dropped something, don't pick it up for them. Sorry, you dropped this, or something fell down. You don't know if it's a sacred item, especially if it's a feather. Don't pick it up. The thing is,
That said, don't pick it up, but maybe report it, so especially eagle feathers. If an eagle feather touches the ground, there's a whole ceremony that goes with it. If it's on the powwow circle, the men make a circle around the feather, the women make a circle around the men to protect the men, and the men have to do a ceremony. It's like a fallen brother or sister. It's huge, and the person who did not have that feather properly attached to their regalia could lose the feather. Because it is sacred. So an elder will take that, and then there's like a whole thing between the person who lost the feather and the elder to see whether they're, if they can have it back. So feathers in particular, yeah.
it happened to me once. I was teaching at a drum conference from a guy in Toronto that sells drums. So that he asked, if I come and teach. Anyway, so there we were all there, and I did some teachings, and I had a feather that actually was, it wasn't, it was a feather that I had for years and years and years, and it was dressed, like the eagle feather over there. And one of the guys, I don't know what he ate or what he drank, he came up and he picked up that feather that I had set up, on a bear fur or what I had there on my the teaching blanket that I have. And he started to dance around with it. And then everybody kind of sort of looked, and those were all Caucasian people and African people, so they didn't know. And there was 3 First Nations people there, and their eyes became big as saucers. And then the guy, and he threw that feather in the air, and the feather fell on the floor. And immediately, all the First Nations people stood up, Leslie stood up, and we thought, oh God, because the First Nations people had seen this as a sacred circle feather, and you cannot toss that on the ground ever, 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 ever. And he was asked, I will never ever look at you, speak to you again, because you totally broke a sacred code. So they totally, for them, this person was immediately what is called bad weather. And the people had me, and they did a dance around the feather and a feather prayer and a feather song, and then gave the feather back to me. And people who know me know that I don't see things very, very tight. I was just as shocked as everybody else, and I said, oh my God, I knew that that was a big misbehave, but for the natives, that was the biggest no-no they had ever seen. And so that's what happened with having feathers. I think we should maybe have a short break, and then I want to go into, now that you know a little bit what's going on in modern First Nations 2022, what you could encounter, let's do some do's and don'ts, and I wrote some of them down, and we can also go into, if you have any questions about what we did so far or what we talked about so far. guys, we heard a little bit of what Denise has been telling what's going on in the Anishinaabe world. But what you also learned is that Native American spirituality is not a religion and it has no dogma. There's no stuff that's prohibited or this or, you know, like you get punished and things like that. Like, it's not like a religion. A religion has dogma and very strict rules, and then you have punishment. In Native spirituality, continuously renews itself and goes with the times. Now we have 2020. What Denise told us about, every little thing works in this modern world. The other thing is, it is direct. It is between her, between the person that worships and the spirits directly. You don't need no middleman, and you don't need no church, no house where you have to go. You have direct access to the sacred. And of course, that was one thing that the churches were very much afraid of and wanted to prohibit, because if you have direct access, you do not need them. And if you don't come, you don't put any money into these boxes that are in the church, right? And then the church fathers can buy these golden things that they put everywhere. So in the olden times, they didn't like that very much, direct spirituality. So while Native spirituality always renews itself, today, if you look at Native writers and, you know, Native teachers, like, for example, you know, somebody who sees this with a critical eye, how does Christianity come across? In other words, what are you guys facing? Everybody in Native circles knows that Christianity is a 2,000-year-old dogmatic belief system from the Middle East. It's not from here. That's a big one. Then it got into Europe, became Eurocentric. White supremacist, Eurocentric, and then it became dogmatic and violent. That is how Christianity is seen. That's like our friend, what is it, Reverend, please?
Phelan.
Phelan? Yeah. Said the other day, it is horrible to find out that the Christians oftentimes were the bad guys. So if you now go and become, let's say, active in you know, becoming a mentor for First Nations people, there are people, you will work with people that know that. Every kid in school knows that. Native kid in native school. In the Catholic churches, in the Catholic schools where I teach, of course, they don't know. But Jasmine knows and Autumn knows, her kids know, because it's all over. So you have this uphill battle because there is this deep, deep, deep-seated mistrust. A lot of Native elders will not teach anybody that is not from their tribe or otherwise First Nations. They will not embrace anybody else. You will not ever get contact to them. That's a silent minority because of 500 years of silence, and a wall of silence is the only thing that kept them safe. them and the traditions. All the traditions from the Medieval, the shaking tent, and any other native spirituality had to go underground for the better part of 150 years, kind of sort of thing, give or take, depending on what area of Turtle Island you live in. So you will only meet people that are willing to face the criticism of the quiet factor and the factor that says, thou shall not teach, no white people, no nothing, no more ever. Because if you teach it, they take it. And it's the last thing we have. So a teacher, a native teacher, goes out on a limb in his own community in order to come here and teach in the circle. She's going out on a limb today, having taught about her people. Because they don't want you to know, because they don't know if the next big poobah from Bracebridge is coming around the corner, misappropriating whatever, every word that she just said.
Can I just add?
Yes.
And that's not everybody, right? Like when I went to the healing
50%
lodges.
down the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to clarify that. Like in Wata, the longhouse that I attended monthly for 25 years, I used to take all my foster kids and all my friends and everybody with me, and they welcomed everybody with open arms. So there's both sides of that, but you're right. Some people will say, hey, you know, you told this and that's not correct. Again, I'm sharing what I've learned on my journey with a good heart, letting you know that I'm not a knowledge keeper, because you have to be. It's kind of like a minister or a priest for your religion. They only know all of up here. But that doesn't mean that you guys can't go to your neighbors and talk about Jesus and you know, pray with your neighbors. It's kind of the same thing. I'm not a knowledge keeper, I'm not a priest or a minister or anything like that, but I can speak to what the truth that I've learned along the way. And you know, 3 different healing lodges, and they all did smudging the same way. They all did certain things the same way. And then they did a few things different.
And different tribes are different. But you will, the people that are against teaching non-indigenous, you will not meet them. They will not talk to you, neither on the powwows nor anywhere else. You will find the people that are open, that are putting their foot out on the thin ice and going and interacting and going to interfaith gatherings like the one that is planned here one of these days in January. They will teach. But we also are facing a huge backlash. We are facing a lot of getting hazed on the internet, and I'm in very, very, very good company there, because all the teachers that ever taught, they are on a blacklist. So, you know, this person's teaching and this person is saying something, and there is a lot of nasty stuff that's being said. Where apparently you get your teachings from, and from what book and whatnot. And I've been teaching at a conference in Toronto. There was a lot of elders. It was Bima Diziwat, you know, the good life of the Anishinaabe people. And then I happened to talk about, you know, the old Medieval ways that were there. And then they said, how come you know this? And I said, well, you know, Peter has a book, and I looked it up. And it's all the Ojibwe Medieval. And what Peter had done, for example, was there is a guy, a white writer, what would you call him, scientist? Selwyn Yudley, and he wrote down all the ancient ways of the medieval, how it is done. And guess what? I put a nice beaver fur for Army the beaver, and I put a Medieval healing spirit, the bear paw on it. Somebody here had a bear paw, as a bear claw given to her as a medicine gift, and there is a bear claw here. And I have this with me. And they said, let me see it. Here it is. And I showed it, and they said, what? Wait a minute. We have to photocopy this. We need this information on where were you 20 years ago when I needed this, and now I'm 65. I could have used that 20 years ago. So they all went and they copied this book. And they found, I said, yeah, well, Peter copied it in downtown Toronto in the library where you cannot borrow it. You have to be there. There is one. So everywhere, library, the copier, we ran that one into the ground. But the teachings go back to the people. A white person wrote this. Everybody was in residential school. Nobody knew anyone, other than the people who have been really closely kept beneath the husk. A few years later, somebody wrote a book about the medieval. And this guy reopened a medieval lodge, and he wrote a book. It's called the Mishomis book, grandfather book. And he wrote it so that little kids can learn the ancient ways of the people. And so all these things get reassembled now. There are First Nations elders that used to write books. My teacher, Eagleman, he's Lakota. He was Lakota. He lives on the other side of the Spirit River now. He wrote several books. Nowadays, nobody's writing nothing anymore. And if you write a book, I'm gonna come after you because you are telling secrets. So we still have a table full of very, very interesting books.
Oh, it's okay, you didn't hear me. I was just going to say, the other thing about the writing it down is then there was the whole commercializing. Like, so I was talking to somebody else, like about a sweat lodge. So they would take the minimal teachings and then they will do a sweat lodge. Well, what people don't realize is like a firekeeper or a sweat lodge person who runs the sweat lodge, they take years to learn that before they're able to do it. So it's not just, like we're scratching the surface on some of this stuff. I have a friend who's a firekeeper, and somebody wanted to have him come in, and they asked how much he charges. And I told him he usually charges $400. Well, they like, and I'm like, but you don't understand. Like, he has to do a sunrise ceremony. Well, we only need him for an hour. It doesn't matter. You have to do your sunrise ceremony. So he has to be up at the crack of dawn and do a sunrise ceremony. Plus, he has to bring all his medicines from his own pocket. Plus, it's probably 10 to 15 years of learning before he was allowed to do it. So
He gets initiated.
exactly. Now, I mean, in the old days, they would give him medicines and whatnot, but obviously, somebody wants somebody to do to be a firekeeper, and they're not going to have traditional medicines to give him. But people don't realize the amount of time that goes in to learning this. I know a young guy, Johanna. He is a knowledge keeper, and I remember he started learning when he was 4 or 5. And it wasn't until he was almost an adult before he was able to start teaching a little bit about, more in depth than what we're doing. And again, like I said, I mean, the stuff that we're teaching are not ceremonies because we're not qualified to teach certain ceremonies, but it takes years to be able to do this. So when people decide, oh, I can go through one, I can see, oh yeah, I walked this way around the circle, I sat in here, oh, there was cedar on the ground, okay, good. So then you have, your sweat lodge, you haven't put your tobacco down. They didn't, because they didn't see anything that went into it. What I've done, trying to think, about 4 or 5 sweat lodges that I've helped put together. And it is an all-day affair. And it is a lot of work, it's a lot of camaraderie, and there's a lot, and that's just me helping a little bit, let alone learning all the teachings behind it. Anyways, I don't want to carry on, but yeah, just when people teach you something, just realize that it's years and years. And when you're sitting around a sacred fire or you're welcomed into one of these things, a sweat lodge or whatever, maybe realize what gift you're really getting given, because that person didn't get there overnight. Yeah.
Very well said. So the other thing is, I think we should maybe go very quickly through what I have written down for you so that we get some understanding of what we talked about the code of silence a little bit. And the first, what you should know is about the code of silence, you know. And we talked last week about the different stages of trauma and the different traumas that all Native people survive. And each and every Native person that you meet is on a different contingent of healing from these traumas. Some people may be first-generation trauma survivors, like I am. You know what happened to me. Denise is a second-generation trauma survivor because the trauma came from her family. So each and every one is different. So you cannot say generally this and this and this and this approach will work, because each and every First Nations person that you meet will have different trauma baggage and a different willingness to be open to interact with white Western society. And so if you meet people, you know, there is no one way that works. That is what I think. You know, each and every indigenous person you meet is on an individual different stage of healing from intergenerational trauma inflicted by the colonial genocide that happened here. And then as we talk now, I talk about elders. And here further down, it's silence is now deeply enshrined as a tool of resistance. But also eventually the silence will open itself once the people realize that they can trust you. And that's the biggest problem, because after, you know, knowing about Christianity being basically violent from, you know, and what white dominating, imperialistic, Eurocentric, dogmatic and violent. That's not you anymore, is it? I don't think anybody here would characterize themselves as being a part of that. And this is where you can really make giant leaps forward, because the Pope cannot revoke the doctrine of discovery. But you as a church, you can say from the grassroots, get together. We don't believe this anymore. We don't believe that only white people have the say, only men have the say. Because in Catholicism there is no women medicine people, there's just male priests, right? So, and I think to explain village by village, church by church, and make maybe something like a little manifesto. You know, we don't believe in these old things anymore. That's a 2,000-year-old vision that sits on your guy's back and is pushing you down, because nobody here is like the doctrines that the Catholic churches and the other churches put forth. So I thought maybe I put it out there that you guys get together and say, hey, you know, 2022, what the heck do we really believe in these days? Do we believe in that the white people are the bee's knees? Because I tell you something, some people do. White supremacists, the ultra-right, is huge and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, not only in good old Canada, it's much worse in the United States. And if the ultra-right tried a coup in good old Germany, it can happen anywhere. And it's a backlash. They want to have the good old ways back when the white man had the say. But is that you? Is that your church? If not, then you guys have to sit together, stick your heads together and say, what the hell do we believe today? What is it? And how can we assure Golden Lake and Curve Lake and all Wasauxon that's not us anymore? You can trust Batesville because, you know, my church isn't doing this anymore. So if we are coming, we don't want the doctrine of discovery and we don't want any of this anymore. That is something you as a churchgoer can do. Because the good old Pope, he can't, because he's tied down by all these thousands of years of religion and doctrine and this. But you can unravel it from the grassroots and make a statement. What does Batesville believe today? What does the one church, the second church, the third church, the fourth church in Batesville believe today? And can the First Nations trust you? And then, you know, send them a love letter and write, you know, we don't believe this anymore. We want you to know, you know, that, you know, we throw a barbecue for you. And we want you to know that that's not who we are anymore. Because all of you that sit here, that's not who you are anymore. But that is the other side that sees you. And that is the danger, and that is the hurdle you have to jump. The silence. I mean, then watch, if you look at modern, I put a lot of books out there for you to look at and to take your phone and photocopy or you know, take a picture so that you can maybe order it or look it up on the net. There are also some books that are really, really, really bad, and I wrote some of them down because they are from these typical fake plastic medicine papers that are haunting the internet and they are haunting the bookstore. And please do yourself a favor and don't fall for any one of those. There's many, I just put 3 down. Then the next do's and don'ts: do not come across as another white know-it-all better person. Because that is also what people, now I'm here, now I know, and now I want to help. And we had one of my patients, a multi-millionaire. She came down and she said, you know, and I'm going to fix this. That they need closing up north in Atawapiskat. Okay, I'm putting $50,000 down to buy a whole truckload of, and you know, be the white person that does this, and then you want to have, of course, the honor and the glory, right? And the native people to whom she talked, they said, no, they looked at me and they said, oh, why did you bring her? But then we said to her, no, that's not what we want. And then they said what they wanted and what they needed, and so she turned around and, I'm going back to Connecticut. So they had a lot of experience with that kind of person. So never mind what we all know. The most important things to remember is that we, and including me, I struggle up a little myself, we know nothing. So the first thing in Native belief in Native conduct is humility. And that is very, very often forgotten. then another thing is, if you see pedagogical violence, I don't know if you ever even heard about that thing existing. It's taught today in schools and portrayed in the media and in guides for visitors and newcomers. It's such very much distorted and whitewashed history of Canada that it's almost irrelevant. If you look at tour guides, what they tell you about Canada, it's as if the native people just moved aside and made room for all the settlers. Or if the native people just seamlessly adopted and became citizens of Batesville and Bracebridge and Huntsville. No, they didn't. They got their land taken away. And about second meeting here, we talked about big bears and signs of the starving Cree, that they were forced to sign a new treaty and sign away half their reservation in order to get food for the winter. Just remember one thing, it had a big bear in effect had to sign in order to become eligible for the government rations. If he had not, the 57-year-old chief and his band would have starved to death in the coming winter. That's from the newspaper. What the newspaper didn't write is he only got 1/4 of the rations that were promised to his tribe. The other 3/4, the Indian agent sold to the white settlers. So nobody trusts treaties and agreements very much because they have been broken so often. None of this is in any history books. The history books need to be rewritten to accurately reflect that very dark chapter, and before any trust can be reestablished. And then the next thing is, do not ask anyone ever, where are you from? It doesn't matter if that lady is from India, or if she's from Switzerland, or if it's Scruffy Little myself on a farmer's market. It is a typical white person, white society thing that helps white society to categorize in order to stereotype a person and then find out how much superior to them that person is. And each and every time you ask that to a lady from India or Bangladesh or our people that are now coming in from the Ukraine, they come with horrendous horror. Each time you ask them, where are you from, you reawaken this horror in them. You may just want to know if they are from Huntsville or from Fraserburg around the corner, but that's not what you're asking. You are calling up horror, especially from people that came here as refugees and landed immigrants. And if I had it in the hospital when I was working in the hospital in Ottawa to get my medical degrees back, my nursing degree here from Canada. There was this English student, and she was in the same class than me, and I had a patient that was a Dane from up north, from one of the oil rigs. He had worked there. He had an accident with a multiply broken leg. So he was really sick, and he had been flown down. And he was at the hospital. He had a smudging shell there, and his bear claws and everything that helped him to get through the surgery and everything. And she came and she said, "Oh, hi, where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from here." "Oh no, where are you really from?" And he said, "Well, I'm from what's up there, Hay River or some village." And he said, no, that's not what I mean. You have a funny accent. Where are you from?" And this guy just exploded. And I said, listen, can you see the abalone shell? And then I was there and I said, hey, shit. I forgot that she doesn't know. She is from England. She doesn't have a faintest idea. And I talked to this gentleman and he said that this is a big, big, big thing. Because you may make the really dumb mistake and ask a native person where you are from. You may ask a Bangladeshi water refugee where they are from. Or you may ask somebody that just has overcome the nightmare of getting a life out of Ukraine. They wouldn't want to talk to you about it because it brings up all the horror again. And if you go to where there's landed immigrants or new Canadian citizens are gathering, it's one of the first things that they all hate. Having to recount, well, I'm from India, yeah, from where? Or when they said, Peter said, I'm from Germany, and they said, woo, Schutzlager, you know, or they say, hi, one person one time said to him, hi, Hitler. And he said, what? So, teaching them. Don't do it. Yeah, so there is a lot of things that we wrote down. There is also a whole sheet of great initiatives where you can join in, where Native people also join in. And especially the Land Needs Guardians. That is a big one that is Native American land protection. And the other sheet that I copied here for you, and you can go through that at home, that's from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission directly. So what they think, what people can do, then what the government is held to do. And so you can go through that at home. I think we are running out of time, right? Now, big question. You guys must have questions, probably a million. Anybody wants to speak up?
I feel like there's lots to learn, oh my gosh. Like I can totally identify with, I know nothing. Like I don't know. But I do feel that one of the things that I'm going to stay with, that's going to stay with me so strongly, is Denise, when you said, you're going to make mistakes, but if you do it with a good heart, and the whole idea of, you know, the smudge ceremony, and to look with eyes and hear and speak from a place of wanting to be part of a solution, part of something that can move things forward. Because I'm not going to stop myself from doing something because I'm fearful that I'm going to make a big mistake because it was so horrible to someone. I need to hear and be open to hearing. And that, thank you for that, because that is the biggest thing I'm going away with.
And the thing is, times are changing. It's not only that the Native people renew their spirituality, so have you. But it is not visible unless you get together and you write it down and you make a couple of statements and say, okay, this is Batesville today. Huntsville may be different, but Huntsville can get together and say, okay, we think that this is a good thing for us. So that, because the old stereotype doesn't fit you guys anymore either. It used to fit in the 17th and 18th century, but it's not anymore. But nobody knows that other than you in your heart. And the people who need to know that, from whatever religious background they are, they will not find out unless you put something out there. And I think that is the biggest, because right now with a 2,000-year-old vision that needs interpreting and interpreting and interpreting, and that's being interpreted. And in the Bible it says, you know, that God made Adam the boss and the whole world is his underling. That's not what you believe anymore, because that is not what gets us forward into the next 50 years and into, you know, the environmental crisis that we are facing and the extinction of species, and that doesn't get, but nobody knows that you have changed. You have changed and I can see it, but nobody else knows. So get the secret out.
And I think for me, what I'm taking is, I look out and I see that you guys are not the stereotypical, you know, Christians. But there are some that still are. But remember, when you're dealing with the Indigenous people, some of us aren't the stereotypical, some of us aren't, you know, like we all need to see that, which again, we're kind of, you wouldn't be here if you didn't already start to understand that. So we didn't have to do a lot to change your mind, but it's just beautiful to see that, you know. Just remember, if you're speaking to an Indigenous person who is angry and won't listen and all that, now you maybe understand a little bit of why they got to where they did, right? And, you know, like I say, when I look at Christianity, I can now look at all the faces here instead of, you know, some of my past experiences with certain.
And you guys also have to become guardians of that, you know, the people who want the good old days back, you know, white supremacists and everything. Speak up if you see something, if you really don't believe that that's the good idea of the day, and say something. And maybe even vote something, which I'm not supposed to say.
Sorry, right over there.
I just wanted to say that this has been a wonderful, dynamic learning experience for me of a journey that I've been on for several years now. But one of the things that's helped me is that on the last Monday of every month in Bracebridge, we have a Truth and Reconciliation study group that has been meeting for perhaps 3 or 4 years. It's been depleted a little bit with the pandemic, but we have perhaps, we're meant to be about half Indigenous and half non. We have a lot of Métis in our group. And for those who can't travel for illness or whatever, we try and do by Zoom. And we bring in speakers, or we have discussion groups. We've talked about some of the grandfather teachings. We've gone through the Truth and Reconciliation. But one of the things that came to us that's happening still, which was just so hurtful to hear, is that women are still being sterilized when they go to have their children. And this was done in Saskatchewan, and it's been in the newspapers just recently. So one of the things we wanted to do is to invite the local Children's Aid to come, or somebody from the Children's Aid to come and speak to us and talk about children in care, and is there an overrepresentation, and to try and get from our local point of view some of the things that are happening. So we haven't been able to attract that person yet, but we're hoping it will still come.
Or first-time mums, first-time Indigenous mums.
Yeah.
Their babies are more likely to be taken away than non-Indigenous, instead of that training and stuff
Right.
that go out. But again, it's still the prejudice of whatever that organization is. And being I had fostered from CAS, there is some learning to do, but I did not feel our local CAS is as bad with that target. I think there's a lot of growth in our.
I just wanted to invite any of you who would like to come to the last, and I'll put my email down there if that's of any help, and Debbie's part of this group as well. And Ellen, who came 2 weeks ago, is our group leader. But we did all the orange ribbons on the bridge, and we do things, we raise the flag for the Child Matters Day and things like that. So You'd be welcome to be part of our learning group if there's somebody people would like to. But this has been, it's not quite as dynamic as this has been. This has been wonderful, so thank you.
It is 2 minutes to 9, and Margaret, I promised you some extra time. Was there anything you needed to finish up, Michelle?
There's probably so much still to say, and
Write your
As I said
names down and we'll come back. Sally, honey.
Yeah. You all witnessed that.
So, did you want her to finish first, or did you want? Oh,
There's also a really good course from the University of Alberta.
Yes.
On the street.
Oh,
Four
I've heard
Seasons of
mixed-
Reconciliation? Is that the
It's
one?
more, it's around the history and it's cultural awareness.
Yeah.
It's good, it's very big, and it does take 10 weeks to do.
Yeah.
You know, 2 or 3 hours a week, maybe even more, but I found it to be like a really good primer for this.
okay.
Yeah.
And I also feel like understanding trauma and how it presents is like, that's a big one for people who come to groups like this, to understand why people even present or speak or whatever. It's like, it's big. Yeah.
Because we haven't
does
been there
anybody
ourselves.
else have something to share, even if you go 5 minutes over?
The other thing we can all do is, when it comes to election time, think about who you're voting for and what they stand for these issues. And really look at their past actions, how they've treated Indigenous communities in the past, and try to vote in a way that you might make a difference.
Still don't have any clean drinking water.
In many places. Somebody promised to make that happen.
Just a couple of positive things. The Primates World Relief and Development Fund. They are a tremendous charity. Pam helped me look it up to see, what their percentages were. But they had a huge fundraising effort for Indigenous issues, but they have totally changed, and now they have a very large group of Indigenous people who decide themselves where the money's raised, how they're used. It's a big, huge change, and they raise thousands and thousands and thousands, and it's going, a lot of it, towards water, which is
What was it called? Oh, something bad.
Primates World Relief and Development Fund. It's, and the other thing that I wanted to say is, in the Anglican Church, we have an Indigenous church. They have their own bishop, they're part of us, but it's so fascinating for somebody like me to watch the Indigenous priests incorporate some of their traditions quite seamlessly in with the Anglican service. It's quite something, and they probably are going to choose to become independent very shortly. So,
It is native belief system incorporates everything, and a lot of First Nations are Christians, believing Christians. But then there is also the other fraction that are absolutely the other way. So, and there is people in the middle that they haven't decided yet, and there is no either or. It's absolutely in flux right now. And we are seeing the First Nations on their way to self-determination. And when I look into the future, I will not see this anymore because I'm hitting 70 and But the native people, they will be independent nations on the Canadian soil, so to speak. So if you go to Wata, you're not gonna be in Canada, you're gonna be in Wata. And that's a good thing. But also make no mistake, if anybody here threatens Canada, our warriors will be the very first ones to sign up with the army, with the navy, with everybody, with intelligence, and fight, because their bones are, and their ancestors are in this ground since thousands and thousands of years. So if, somebody wants our water, they may have to deal with some water warriors. Because even if many First Nations do not consider themselves Canadian, the minute anybody wants something bad from Canada, they are going to be there. And they are going to be reckoned with. Because then all the squabbles stop and they will help defend us like they did in World War I and II. They signed up and they fought for this country. Because they fight for their ancestors and for the ancestral land. So we are all on our way. And it'll be bumpy at times, but do not give up, because we are all strong enough to overcome those bumps. We do that. Spirits of the Four Directions and Mother Earth and Father Sky, here we stand before you, kind of baffled for all we learned, kind of baffled how much we haven't even touched and how much we will still have to learn. But our hearts are open and our minds are open. And we will use ancient ways and modern ways to keep on learning, to keep on growing, and to keep on helping this cross-cultural understanding along. Powers of the East, powers of morning, sunrise and future, please help us in this endeavor. Powers of the South, powers of love, understanding and family, please help us all in this endeavor. Powers of the West, powers of autumn and evening, moving away from old ways that no longer serve. Powers of health and healing, please heal the old wounds. Heal the dark feelings we have in our hearts when we have to look at this mountain we have to climb. And give us the strength to put one foot in front of the other in beauty and in balance, so that healing can come towards all nations and in between all nations. Spirits of the North, spirits of the ancestors, please protect us, please guide us, please give us the vision that we need for the future. Beloved Mother Earth, you here on Treaty 61 territory are already dressed in white. A skimpy nightgown that will get thicker and thicker and thicker with snow. May you rest over the solstice, and may you awaken in spring. Bring new life, new energy, new hope, and a new harvest to all our relations and also to us. Father Sky, we give thanks for the care that you give to Mother Earth, the lightning that gives her new energy, the rain that feeds the plants, that feeds the animals, that feed us. We send you greetings. We send greetings to Grandfather Sun, who also is sound asleep right now, and Grandmother Moon, who goes into her brown phase. A good time to walk away from old vices and old ways. Blessings to all that live upon Mother Earth. Blessings to all of you, to your family and loved ones, as you go into the winter solstice, the renewal of the sun, the renewal of the land. Blessings to everyone who couldn't be here today. Blessings to all our teachers, from whom we learned, wherever they may be. Pichimanichu, Jemnido, Taiowe, Musen, Wakantanka, Lord God, beloved Goddess. Great mystery with so many names in one energy. Please bless us all. Let there be no evil anywhere on Mother Earth. Did you make rich? Shayanam, and thank you.
Is a very, very small token, and to use some of your words, Michelle, you brought us vision and balance and much beauty, and I will be forever grateful to the two of you. And this is just tiny, but it's something that all of us want you to have.
Maybe you want to.